The dusty town sat on the edge of silence, the kind that creeps in when judgment hangs in the air heavier than the desert sun. A crowd had gathered, boots pressed into dirt, voices murmuring as they pointed at the man shackled in chains. He was tall, rugged, and scarred from battles life had never given him a fair chance to win. His hair was wild, his eyes untamed, and his presence carried both menace and tragedy. To the townsfolk, he was nothing but trouble, nothing but danger wrapped in human skin. They called him savage, as if stripping him of his name could strip him of his humanity. Whispers of crimes, of violence, of a past painted in sin surrounded him, and yet none had ever taken the time to see the truth hiding beneath the surface. He was a man burdened by a story no one cared to hear, a soul cast out because it was easier to condemn than to understand. The sheriff tugged the chains harshly, dragging him toward the square, where punishment would be delivered in the name of justice, or perhaps in the name of fear. The crowd leaned forward, eager for a spectacle, their hearts hardened by the tales they had heard. A few spit at his feet, others laughed cruelly, mocking his silence. His lips were sealed, his jaw clenched, his spirit refusing to bow before the cruelty of men. They called him an animal, a beast, a savage who deserved no mercy. And still, in the depths of his dark eyes, there flickered something unbroken, something raw and painfully human. It was then that her voice cut through the noise, sharp and trembling yet filled with conviction. "Don't hurt him!" The word startled the crowd, causing heads to whip around. Standing at the edge of the square was a woman, her dress dust-stained from the long ride, her hair loose as though she had rushed without care for appearances. She was not from this town, and that was clear in the way her presence drew uneasy glances. She stepped forward, her boots steady on the ground, though her heart thundered in her chest. Every eye turned to her, questioning, doubting, waiting for her to falter. But she did not. Her gaze locked onto the chained man, and she saw what no one else dared to see. "I'll buy him," she said, her voice unwavering. Gasps rippled through the crowd, disbelief washing over their faces. The sheriff raised a brow, a cruel smirk tugging at his lips. To them she was a fool, blinded by sympathy, reckless with her heart. But she stood tall, her chin lifted, her resolve unshaken. "Call him savage all you want," she continued, her tone growing stronger with every word. "But I see a man worth saving." The townsfolk erupted with laughter and scoffs, shaking their heads at her foolishness. To them she was naive, blinded by some romantic fantasy of redemption. They had chosen to believe the worst about him, and in doing so, they had stripped themselves of compassion. Yet she did not argue with their jeers, nor did she defend her decision to them. Her eyes never left his, and in that silent exchange, a flicker of recognition passed between them. For the first time in years, perhaps, he felt seen, not as an outcast, not as a beast, but as a man. The sheriff tugged at the chain again, sneering. "Lady, you don't know what you're asking for. He's dangerous. He's wild. He'll tear you apart the first chance he gets." But she stepped closer, her voice steady as stone. Or maybe he's been torn apart too many times already. Maybe all he needs is someone who believes he can be whole again. Her words cut through the noise, silencing the laughter for a fleeting moment. The weight of them lingered in the air, undeniable and haunting. His chest rose and fell heavily, his breath ragged with disbelief. He wanted to scoff, to push away the hope stirring dangerously inside him. Hope was a dangerous thing. It could lift a man only to shatter him again when the world reminded him of who it believed he was. But her eyes, unflinching and full of fire, reached into the broken places he had buried deep. She wasn't afraid. Or perhaps she was, but her courage outshone her fear, and that alone disarmed him more than any chain ever could. The sheriff looked between her and the prisoner, weighing her determination against his own authority. Finally, with a shrug that reeked of arrogance, he loosened the chains and shoved the man forward. "Fine," he spat. "Take him. But don't say I didn't warn you." The crowd murmured, curiosity and disbelief mixing in their tones, but no one stopped her. She reached into her satchel, handed over the coins, and claimed him, not as property, but as proof that she believed his life was worth more than their condemnation. As he stumbled toward her, his wrists raw from the iron cuffs, She reached out a hand. He hesitated, every instinct screaming to pull away, to shield himself from what surely must be another cruel trick. But she didn't waver, her palm open, her eyes unwavering. Slowly, almost painfully, he let his fingers brush hers, a fragile connection forming between a broken man and the one soul who dared to see him differently. Together, they walked away from the square, the weight of judgment trailing behind them like dust in the wind. Whispers followed, warnings and ridicule, but she didn't look back. She had made her choice, and he, though silent, had accepted it with a heart still unsure how to carry this sudden gift of grace. That night, as the stars stretched across the endless sky, he sat by the fire, watching her move with quiet strength. She didn't ask him to explain his past, didn't demand he prove himself. She simply offered him kindness, a cup of water, a blanket against the cold. Her actions were simple, but to him, they were miracles. For years he had been treated as less than human, and now, with every gesture, she reminded him that he was still a man, still worthy of dignity. The name Savage still rang in his ears, a brand the world had burned into him. But in her presence it began to lose its power. She had looked beyond the scars, beyond the rage, beyond the brokenness, and found something worth saving. And for the first time, he wondered if redemption was not a dream too far out of reach. Perhaps, with her belief lighting the path, he could find his way back from the darkness. In the end, the story was not about a woman buying a man, nor about defying a town's judgment. It was about the courage to see what others refused to see, to reach into the ashes of a life scorched by pain and find an ember still burning. It was about choosing mercy over fear, hope over despair, and love over condemnation. And as the fire crackled in the night and the chains lay discarded in the dirt, one truth became clear. Sometimes all it takes to save a life is one voice brave enough to say, "I see you and you are worth saving."